All right.
Oh.
What
We're being recorded.
talking about
Yes.
tonight? Because I mean, I actually do have, but we don't have to go that direction. We almost couldn't meet last week because Anna wasn't here, and I was told she's the only one that had questions. So.
I did not hear what you said.
That's okay.
We
That's
almost
okay,
couldn't meet
Anna.
last week because I was told you were the only one that had questions and you weren't here.
Oh, no, I monopolized the week before, but I was going to be nice last week.
Well, does anyone have anything that's on their mind in particular? Nothing?
Yeah, but you don't want to hear it.
Why do you say
Doesn't
that?
have anything to do with this. Doesn't have anything to do with this.
It has to do with your brother?
That's a different therapy.
Yes, some mental therapy.
That's why we're here, if you want to talk about it.
No, I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
Gritting my teeth. No, I'm all right, really. I'm a lot better.
If you
I'm a
don't,
lot better.
that's fine too.
I don't, because if I do, then you don't have the time or the patience to listen to all this. So,
I don't know.
no,
about that.
I'm all right. Well, yes, you're right. You probably do. Of anybody, you probably do have the patience to listen to me. You've done it before.
So, are we going down this road or not?
What, my road?
Yeah.
No.
All right. All right.
No, there are more important things to talk about, I think.
Well, I don't necessarily believe that, but something I want to talk a little bit about Deborah's situation last night with this young lady, and what a blessing it is to be able to get into someone's life, if only for a brief moment, to shine a little bit of the light in their lives. And it's so empowering, and so you feel so good. Now, it's like you said, though, is it going to make a difference? Is she just playing us? I go to 1 Corinthians 3:6. I love this verse. It is 1 Corinthians 3:6.
3:6.
It is really, I think, the model that I try to follow for evangelism and sharing and outreach.
Ah,
God, it went right there.
yep. I have planted, Apollos watered.
I planted the seed, Apollos watered, but God made it grow. And
Yep.
we have no idea. You know, we just have no idea what our work in the lives of other people is doing. I was with Linda Long today, who should put her on the prayer list as well. She's not doing well. But she told the story of a lady she met many years ago in the course of doing some healthcare work. And this lady and her husband tried and couldn't get pregnant. So Linda was with them, and she just prayed for him. Just prayed for him. Many years later, they kind of ran into each other. They were looking at each other like, I know you somehow. And yeah, I know you. And they couldn't figure it out. Then it finally dawned on them. Linda was the healthcare worker that had helped. And the lady said, we have a baby now. So
Oh, wow.
you just never know the seed that you're planting when it's going to bear fruit, because we want to see results. You know, we want to see someone say, you bet, I want to sign me up. Almost like the altar call kind of thing. We want to see people commit and give their lives to Jesus. And sometimes we don't get to do that. My brother made a very, very good point about this when I was expressing some frustration. He said, you may just be getting people at a different place in the growth process. You may be getting them at the very, very beginning. You may be getting them at the very, very end. You may not get to see some of the altar call type stuff, but you're still, you're involved in the process. You're involved in planning and growing. You're just in a different part of it. And then somebody else takes over. And that made a lot of sense to me. So who knows what's going to happen to that seed that you planted? Whether it's going to bear fruit. I've heard plenty of stories of people years later committing their lives to Christ, saying, you know, I remembered something my Sunday school teacher told me. Or I remembered somebody praying for me. She may go back to that. And that may be in a very significant moment in her life. We just don't know. We want to see the results now. And God reminds us we're just called to plant and water and take care of the rest.
And that's what I'll do.
The tragedy is not that we don't get to see the results. The tragedy is not taking the time to plant water. This opportunity, which kind of segues. I'm sorry, did somebody have something they wanted to say?
No, I was going to, but go ahead. Continue on. I apologize.
No. Kind of segues into the other thing I've been thinking about this week. Ephesians 4:26. The first part of the verse, Ephesians 4:26.
Yep. Be ye angry and sin not.
All right, somebody read that. What does that say?
Be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath.
Okay, anybody else have a different translation?
In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry. And do not give the devil a foothold.
Yeah, I want us to think about the first part of that verse. In your anger, do not sin. I always thought, or isn't it kind of a common conception that anger is of itself sin? Keep your finger there in Ephesians 4 and go back to Matthew 5.
So we're in Ephesians 5 now?
Matthew 5.
Matthew.
Oh, Matthew, excuse me. And here.
Matthew 5, starting in verse 21.
21. Murder.
So verse 21 and 22.
There's such feedback on that.
You have heard that it was said to the people long ago, you shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment.
Okay.
And anyone with a brother or sister. Raka, I don't know what that means.
It says in verse 22, I tell you, anyone who is angry with his brother is subject to judgment. But now, flip back to Ephesians 4:26. In your anger, do not sin. We separate anger and sin.
Mhm.
Or there are degrees of anger.
That's a good question, I suppose. A little angry, a
Yes.
lot angry.
I guess there's a question of what the anger is directed at.
Is that like asking, are there degrees of
Jesus
pregnancy?
became angry at the money changers. Jesus became angry at the money
Very,
changers in the
very
temple.
good. So she's talking
Mhm.
about the scene in Matthew 21 where Jesus got angry at the money changers in the temple, right? Cleared the temple. So is there such a thing as righteous anger?
Yes. I think that's a good example of righteous anger.
Okay, so you can be angry without sinning. Is that what we're saying?
But anger,
I think it'd be how you demonstrate that anger.
yeah.
Play it out, There's anger.
Jesus
You can
demonstrated
express
it
it
by
in a
overturning
constructive
tables.
way.
Mhm.
I think it's how you demonstrate it. If you do it in a I don't know.
Do it what?
Well,
I just think it's a constructive way to do anger.
Okay, so should Jesus have told them
And
in the
destructive.
temple, listen, guys, this is not a good idea. I really think you need to get out of here.
That wasn't going to fly.
Dudes, chill. Take your stuff and get out.
What did
They
he do?
laughed at him,
What did he do instead?
got their attention.
Overturned the tables. And I
Yeah.
think one of the
My dad
gospels,
was done.
doesn't it say he made a whip out of cords
Mm-hmm.
and chased them away? So,
Mm-hmm.
and we know that Jesus was without sin, so that was not necessary. That was not a sin. So is it?
That's a
It seems like it's possible to get angry in righteous anger without sinning. So what is righteous anger?
Trying to right a wrong, trying to get somebody's attention that this is very wrong and you need to stop it. And I mean, that's what Jesus was doing in the temple. They were making the temple a den of thieves because they were selling all of the animals that were supposed to be sacrificed, right?
Right, they were
But they were cheating
going,
the people when they,
they were turning it
yeah.
into a money-making enterprise. So what's another word, what's another word for you said, I think you said trying to right a wrong. It's another word for wrong.
A weaker or person or someone taken advantage of, or a weaker person hurt by a stronger
Okay.
person. That
Injustice.
genders anger.
Okay. Yes, we should be angry at that. You guys are,
A child.
this is all good. You're dancing all around it. What are we really talking about here?
choices, a lot of it.
But what should we be angry at?
Ken?
Sin. We should be angry at sin. Sin should make us angry. When we look at our world and see the sinfulness and brokenness, that should make us angry, and that anger is righteous anger. When you see, you mentioned
I know.
injustice. When you see people being taken advantage of unjustly and unfairly, that's sinful. That's directly condemned in the Bible. That should provoke within us righteous anger.
I remember growing up, my dad was the type that he would, I hate to use the word preach, but that's what he would do a lot of. And it was like, right is right, even if no one else is doing it. And wrong is wrong, even if everyone is doing it. And he would drive that home to us so many times that, you know, don't be a follower, don't join in, use your head. They're jumping off the cliff. That doesn't mean you have to fall in line with them.
I was going to ask,
And I think,
is that the same argument as if everybody's jumping off a bridge?
yep, the same argument. but he was right. He was really right. And because it's customary now, that doesn't mean you have to follow along and accept it. You know, what's
Well, it's pretty easy to say no when somebody's doing something that you don't want to do or is dangerous. But if it's something you want to do, everybody else is doing it. It's a whole other.
and that's where he still drove home to us. Wrong is wrong. I don't care if it's wrong and they're doing it. It's still wrong.
I think the point here, though, is that it's not only not sinful to be angry at sin, we should be angry at sin. Why should we be angry at sin? Who's our model for that?
For sin?
No, for righteous anger.
I would say Jesus would be our.
Well,
Is our model?
well. Let me find this verse here. The times where you see God angry in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament.
Golden calf made him angry.
Golden calf, a good example of that.
Yep.
But when God is expressing his anger, go to Romans 1:18, for example. Romans 1:18. Now, what does that say?
The wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of man, who hinder the truth in unrighteousness.
Okay, so God's wrath, God's anger is being revealed. Why? Against godlessness and wickedness. In other words, sin. That's what God gets angry with. Isaiah 26:21. The times you see God get angry in the Bible, he's not getting angry for no reason. It's not like he didn't get enough sleep or woke up on the wrong side of the bed or
Isaiah what?
didn't get his morning coffee. Isaiah 26:21.
Hard to turn these things.
Really
on.
wants-
Okay.
Yeah.
See, the Lord is coming out of his dwelling to punish the people of earth for their sins. The earth will discover the blood shed on it. The earth will conceal its slain no longer.
See, the Lord is coming out of his dwelling to do what? To punish the people. Why? For their sins. Why was God back in, I think it's Exodus or Genesis, let's say Genesis 19, Genesis 18, Genesis 18, verse 20. Verse 20.
25,
Genesis
20.
18, verse 20.
20. Mm. Because the God of Sodom and Gomorrah, because their sins very grievous.
Then the Lord said, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great and their sin so grievous that I will go down and see what they have done, if it is bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know. And what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah? God wiped them out.
Right.
Came
In
Las Vegas.
anger against sin. So we're seeing a consistent picture here between God the Father and God the Son, their righteous anger against sin. So if we are trying to be like God and Jesus, and that is what the sanctification of the Spirit means, is to make us more like Jesus, then we should also have anger against sin. We should be appalled by it. And if you can look into our world and see what's going on and not be angry, then that may be an indication that you've made more of a compromise and an accommodation with the world than God would like. If you could turn on your TV and look around you and see what's going on and have no problem with it, then perhaps you're more of the world than God would like. We keep making the point that we're not of this world, that we're different than the world, that we're called out of the world because it's the world that's in the flesh. That fleshly living should make us angry. Is our current world any better than Sodom and Gomorrah was?
Probably not.
No. Look at Las Vegas.
You don't have to go to Las Vegas. But I get your point. So that should cause us anger. It's okay to have righteous anger at sin. Now, the question was, well, how should that express itself? Should a righteous anger and sin express itself? Because I'm angry at the world of sin, should I just go out, start beating people up and screaming at them and yelling at them?
It would devalue our worth.
How much control do you have over someone else's sin? You can be angry about it. How much control do you exert?
What do you mean by that?
Well, you could go out and kill them because of sin,
Yes, you could.
but none of that is going to change their sin unless they do it themselves.
Okay. Let's go to Matthew. Let's go to Matthew 18 here.
So I think that's why Jesus is saying, don't let the sun go down on your anger. There's only so much you can do. Someone who's sinning, you can't change them. You can only talk with them or live by example or something, but you can't.
We can't change them, but this goes back to the planting and watering. I can't change anybody, but I can tell them how to change, and I can lead to the person that can change them.
So
Okay.
what is the water?
What is what?
You can.
We're talking about the water.
We're
Is the
getting to-
water our prayers?
We're getting
Okay,
to that.
all right. That's what's been in the back of my mind.
Okay, Matthew 18, starting at verse 50.
15.
18, did you say?
If your brother sins against you, go and show him his fault just between the two of you. Now notice, it does not say if your brother sins against you, don't worry about it, because that's him and not you, and you don't have to pay any attention. The implication here is what? About sin. That sin is wrong, it is ungodly, and it needs to be pointed out.
But so to do it between you two.
If I came to someone and said, let me point out your sin to you, what reaction do you think I'm going to get?
I'd roll my eyes.
That's probably about as far as you're going to get.
I would roll
They're
my
gonna
eyes
say-
at you and just like, okay.
They're going to say, who are you to tell me? And I guarantee you they're going to bring up that Bible verse that says what? Judge not.
Not lest they be judged.
Yes, lest you be judged. Is it judgment, though? Is it judging someone to point out their sin?
That's a
No.
good question. I had this, I was just thinking about this a few years ago. I had a misunderstanding with someone, and they pretty much just locked me out, just shut me out. I kept trying to apologize and talk to them. They wouldn't take phone calls. I didn't know what to do. And somebody said, well, they're not being a very good Christian, are they? And I said, well, if I say that to them, am I being judgmental? What's the answer?
Did you see them exhibiting sin in their lives?
No, it wasn't that. They just weren't accepting my apology. I mean, it wasn't anything, a life or death situation. It was, they got their feelings hurt. But they got their feelings hurt, and they wouldn't listen to me. They wouldn't speak to me. And it wasn't even anything. It wasn't that big of a deal of anything. And they wouldn't answer my phone calls. They wouldn't answer texts. And this went on for weeks.
They were exhibiting anger against you, and not righteous anger, but just anger.
Yeah, I don't know whether it was anger or they just had very thin skin.
That's a product of anger.
So is it wrong to go to someone and say, look, you're being ungodly in this? That you're not doing what you're called to do in accordance with the word. Is that judging someone?
I felt like it would have been.
You shouldn't be judging the person. You can judge the act. Somebody does something, you can say that's not right, but not say you are wrong because you're doing that. I mean, you've inferred that you're saying that they are wrong because they're doing it, but you're acknowledging the act, not the person. Then you might get something.
You don't have to be a biblical scholar. You don't have to be a biblical scholar to understand what sin looks like.
Right.
If you go into somebody's house and you see a husband beating up his wife, that's sin. That's wrong.
That might be cause for.
Okay, and as sin, we recognize it as sin and we call it out as sin. It says right here in Matthew 18:50, if your brother sins against you, go show him his fault. You're wrong. This is not right. What you are doing is unbiblical and ungodly.
So then it's not judgmental.
It is not judging someone to point out if they're sinning. As a matter of fact, you are doing more harm for them if you don't point out their sin.
Yeah, see, that's where I couldn't decide. I was on the fence.
I think, they always say love the sinner, hate the sin.
Yeah.
And
If someone's committing,
I think you have to have a
continual
special relationship with someone before you're going to get any place by saying you're a sinner to them.
but that's
I mean,
I have heart.
that's a terrific point. That this goes back to the planting in the water. I'm not trying to fix anybody. I'm doing what I'm called to do, or I'm trying to do what I'm called to do. How you react to it is between you and God. If I see you constantly displaying ungodly behavior and I point that out to you, it's quite possible you might react by saying, well, no, you can't judge me, and who are you to say that? That's very likely someone might say that, but that's not my responsibility.
no, but you're a minister, so you can say those things.
I don't know that gives him any more right to say those things than anybody else.
No.
We are all
Well,
shepherds.
no, but people are more open to hearing it from someone that they feel is godly versus someone that they look at as a friend.
So you don't look at anybody else as godly?
The flip side of that is they may look at someone that, like a pastor, as more judgmental or holier than that.
I mean,
I'd be more willing
it's
to
like
hear.
if you have a conversation with another person in church, and if you disagree on things, and I could disagree with somebody, that doesn't mean I'm going to take all of my toys and go back home and say, I'm done. You have to be able to talk to people. You have to agree to disagree. And if I have a difference of opinion, I can say that I have a difference, but I leave it at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And because I have to respect others around me that also have their own view. I'm not one to call people out saying you're a sin, because I've made my own sins, and this is so blatant enough.
Well, that's what
that,
makes people so uneasy about this.
Yeah, because it has to be pretty blatant for me to just call it out. I just,
That's the way I feel.
because
If your brother sins against you, go and show him his fault. The worst thing,
because it's like he who has
the worst thing we can
take the
do
log out of your
to
own
someone
eye.
who is outside the grace of God is to ignore him.
Well, what about the thing of take the log out of your own eye before you take it out of somebody, before you point it out in somebody else's? Something like that. I don't think I've got that correctly.
Ideally, the way this should work is you go talk to someone and they understand, if you do it in love, that you are trying to help them.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And what you're trying to do is bring them back to the Lord. You're not trying
I
to
get
judge
that.
them.
Yeah.
The reason that this is such a powerful passage for me is because I've seen it work, and it worked in my own life. When I was about 30 years ago, I was working on TV, and one of the guys I was working with came up and said, "Brad, I just wanted to tell you, I'm seeing you do some things and say some things that really are not very godly, and that you should really think long and hard about that and try to stop that." Now, I could have said, "What do you mean? Who are you? Tell me that." But I knew the kind of person he was, and I also knew what he was saying was true. And so what I ended up saying was, "Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out." And that's the way it's supposed to work.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I had said, "You're crazy, you're nuts, I'm not listening to you," what are we supposed to do then? It says here, continuing in verse 15, if he listens to you, you have won your brother over. That's what happened with me. But if you will not listen, take one or two others, so that everything may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If he refuses to listen then, tell it to the church, and if he refuses to listen even to the church, treat him as you would a pagan or a tax collector. In other words, at some point, you get to the point where you just say, you know what, I'm walking away. Your eyes are closed, your heart is shut. There's nothing I can do. Amen. But at least we have to make the effort. As painful as it is. There is nothing judgmental about pointing out sin. And sin is so obvious today, it's blatant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in your
It's not
face.
hard to find sin. The worst thing we can do is make accommodation for it and ignore it.
I'm reading a book right now called Don't Let the Devil Have a Seat at Your Table. And it's very interesting.
What's kind of the point?
Excuse me?
What is kind of the point of it so far?
It's so far it goes into the Psalms 23 and it's breaking down even some of that, but it's talking about your mindset, about how you deal with things, that you do not have to allow the devil. When you come up into conversations with different people, you come up to decisions in your life, that you just stop, because you do not have to invite the devil in there and have a seat at that table to participate in any of that. And a friend of mine, my cousin in Florida, Alana Vininger, the one who's got cancer, her mother-in-law told me about it, and her grandson went to a camp, and the author was a speaker there, and this was his latest book, and so she recommended it to me, and it has just been a very good read. It's not big or anything, but it's been very good, because she said it turned him around. So
Let's go
I
to
like to
John
read a lot.
16, John 16:33 for a minute. John 16:33.
Man, I'm finding stuff really fast today.
Did he give you crib nose?
No,
Got that?
no, no. I'm just going to the page, and it's like on that page or the
There
next.
it is. You were meant to be there quickly. Good for you.
Jesus said, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. The world that we live in is sinful and broken, and we are not to make accommodation to it. We are not to let the devil have a seat at our table. Go to 2 Timothy now. 2 Timothy 3, verse 1. Second Timothy 3, verse 1.
But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days.
When are the last days, by the way?
We're in them.
We're in them.
Did
Okay.
they get that right?
I think we all did.
Well, I two people talked at one time. Okay, you said, when are the last days? And somebody said, we're in it. Is that what was said? Okay.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead. You can keep reading.
People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying its power, have nothing to do with such people.
In other words, we live in a pretty bad world, filled with bad people.
I'm gonna have to find a whole new bunch of friends. That's all there is to it.
What's that?
I'm gonna have to find a whole new bunch of friends if we're not supposed to have anything. See, there's another thing where I get, okay, if we're not supposed to have anything to do with people like that, then how do we ever get a word across to them?
I think when it says have nothing to do with them, I think what that's really saying is do not let them influence you. Do not look. If you look at the next section in that reading from 2 Timothy, it doesn't mean we can't bring them the word of Christ. But in that next section it says, they are the kind who worm their way into homes and gain control over weak-willed women, who are loaded down with sins and swayed by all kinds of evil desires. If you hang out with such people, you run the risk of them dragging you down into it.
Yeah.
So when it says have nothing to do with them, it doesn't mean don't try to bring them to the love of Jesus. What it's saying is don't let them into your life. Don't let them be influential. Don't let them drag you down into their ungodliness.
Okay. Okay.
Now I'm going to try to tie everything together here. We started with Ephesians 4:26. In your anger, do not sin. And we talked about it's impossible to be angry without sinning. And then we've talked about calling out sin, and is it judgmental? From Matthew 18. Are we judging people when we point out sin? And I guess the reason I've been thinking about this is because this is what happened to me this week. And I shared this on Facebook, and some of you may have seen this, where Darlene and I were eating at the Chinese restaurant Sunday night. And we went to check out, and there was a young woman there. I don't know why she came in or what she was doing there, but she was just cussing up the food. She was complaining because she didn't want to wear a mask. She didn't think it was right to have to wear a mask. She was cussing out them. She was cussing out everything. And finally, I stood there and I just had enough. And I said, no one here wants to hear this. If you don't want to wear a mask, don't come in. It's their restaurant. They can set the rules. If you don't like them, don't come in. And then she turned on me and Darlene. She actually took Darlene to a fight, which I kind of I might have wanted to see that. I think Darlene could have taken it. But
she's pretty scrappy.
She left her brass knuckles at home that night. So. But anyway, she kept screaming at us all the way out in the parking lot. And as I thought about it later, there were two things I thought. One was, yes, I was angry. It was a sinful anger. I'm still kind of conflicted on it.
No.
She was sinning. She was in the wrong. I pointed it out to her. I don't believe I judged her, and I don't believe I sinned in doing what I did. Now, where I could have done better was I lost an opportunity to plant a seed. It seemed like whether she would have listened to it or not, and I guarantee you she wouldn't have. But had I had more time to think about it, I could have used that as an opportunity to say, you're obviously upset. Is it okay if I pray for you? I didn't do that. I prayed for her later, but she got me, kind of worked up to the point where I wasn't thinking very clearly. So it was quite an instructive lesson about the world. And I just kind of shook my head thinking, there are really people like this in this world. It's almost hard to believe that somebody could be that vulgar, that angry, that self-centered, that you just don't care about anything or anybody but yourself. But that's our world. And it was a missed opportunity. And I regret that. I wish I'd had a calmer head about it. So I don't think I necessarily sinned in my anger or in my response, but I did not use that opportunity to try to plant a seed. So I do regret that. Given the lack of news in the Chicago paper, I kind of figured it might be front page stuff the next day. But
Do you think she would have been any happier if they said, "Oh, you don't have to wear a mask when you come in"?
I can't hear you very well.
Probably would have been that.
Say that again.
I said, do you actually think she would have been happy if they said, "Oh, okay, all right, you don't have to wear a mask"?
Yeah, no, I don't. I think she was just so vile and so angry. No matter what you said, she was going to be angry. So my praying for her wouldn't have accomplished anything in that moment. But down the line, who knows? And what saddens me the most is that was an opportunity lost to show someone, even in the midst of anger and hatred and disagreement, here's somebody that's modeling Jesus. And can't get that back. Pray for her every day. Don't even know her name, but I can't get that opportunity back.
God knows her name.
So it's just, it was a weird situation. You get thrown into something like that, and it starts to escalate, and you're just hoping to get out of there without somebody pulling a gun.
Well, because I think about that little boy. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago? That got shot. His mother.
But at least she wasn't yelling anymore at the poor Chinese people. She was yelling at me. So there is that. All right. Anything else?
Good tonight.
Try to do better next time.
Well, I think you did really well in following our train of thought this time. At least it wasn't off onto 15 different tangents that you couldn't tie together.
Where did that happen?
I enjoy the tangents. The tangents are fun. So.
Oh, this is good. I enjoy it. But I enjoy all of it.
I enjoy those organic discussions that just kind of evolve and see where they lead.
Flow like a river and go where they want to go.
That's right.
Make their own river.
All right.
Their own.
Do we have